Greetings, geeks, and welcome to this installment of Robin's Reading Rainbow. I'm Adam.
I'm Michael.
I'm Steven.
You think?
Ooh.
You sure?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
And this time around, we are excited. It feels like it's been many episodes in the making to start talking about Mike Allred's seminal creation, the timeless classic, Madman. Oh, yes.
So, we're excited, or are you excited?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I've been talking it up since the beginning of the show, and it's starting to rub off on some of you guys who've at least given it a chance. And that's why we decided it was time that we were going to talk about it, because in issue 33 of Wizard, Mike Allred is interviewed, and he is actually running a contest where fans can submit a new costume idea, for Madman. And so it was kind of this culmination of the hype that had been building for him. And now he had started up over at Dark Horse Comics. Previously, he had been, on these other smaller independents. And then now Dark Horse is picking him up, kind of the king of the independent books, you might say, of this era, giving creators their chance in the spotlight. So this is my question, though. I know that, Michael, you'd never read Madman until you recently picked up an issue.
So I picked up in a back issue bin this guy right here. I spent $8 on this thing. Just putting that out there. And to preface, I did have a little bit of an insight of Mike Allred because I did read the entire iZombie run. So I kind of knew the art style that I was going for. I didn't realize that this story was going to be kind of like an LSD fever dream that someone envisioned, I feel like.
So here's the question I have then, because then Steven, after, I'd been talking it up, he went and bought some of the trades.
I did.
The earliest adventures of Madman that they call the Oddity Odyssey. So talk to me about reading volume 1. What was your take from that? Because it's very different in a lot of ways, I feel, than what we get with this issue number 1 from Dark Horse.
I really loved it. I really responded to it. It has almost this kind of surreal Tim Burton quality to it. Comic books are always about outsiders, the best ones. They're always about people who are on the fringe of society, appealing to teenage boys who and girls whose bodies are changing and they feel weird and all this kind of stuff. It's the classic Spider-Man kind of parable. And this takes that to an extreme personal level, which I really responded to. I like how personal it feels. It almost seems like only Mike Allred could have written this story and drawn it. And that's what I like about it, is it's very handmade.
Yeah, and at the same time, what I find interesting about it, because those first adventures were black and white, and so it does give you kind of this like creepy, like 50s sci-fi movie feel to it. And there is stuff, there's like Dr. Flem, his scientist friend, gets his head chopped off because he was doing experiments and his body is deteriorating. He's got to put his head, in a special serum that goes in a bathtub, and then eventually they reattach it. So there's a lot of wild elements going on, in addition to Frank Einstein, who is Madman's alter ego, getting to know Jo, his girlfriend, better, and kind of building that relationship, which is kind of the core of the books, aside from the adventures, which was the next series, Madman Adventures, which was in color, published by Kevin Eastman over at Tundra Publishing. And then so now we're at a place where you have Frank Einstein, Dark Horse number 1 with Madman Comics. They had to catch us up. So they had to give us an idea of, okay, what is this world that came before and what are we in for now? So, Michael, you started reading here and you picked up this number 1 issue. I will tell you, I don't even have that because I only have the Madman Gargantua, and I only ever bought the trades. So I've always had the collections. I never bought the individual issues until the later series. So as you open this, did you feel like it was able to catch you up? What did you take from the origin? No.
No, I was like I had no idea how the girlfriend relationship was established. I didn't understand the two scientists that he dealt with. I kind of got the vibe that, like, you know, they brought him back to life somehow. It felt like I was missing a piece. Like I felt a little disjointed from the story. That being said, it's interesting. It's super weird. There's aliens in it, I think, or space shuttle or something like that. I read it a few weeks ago now, but like, I don't understand how he got his gun. Like I wanted to know where that came from. That shoots, you know, discs essentially that, you know, seem plastic, but yet seriously wound people. It's very, very interesting.
Well, yeah, and Madman, like you say, is kind of this mix of there's like existential concerns and thoughts. What is my place in the universe? What does it mean to be alive? Those types of things. And then at the same time, then totally like goofy, almost like childlike attitudes.
Sure,
that he in his daily life, but then inside his head, like there's so much going on that he's trying to figure out the universe and whatever it might be. So Michael, so you were a little bit lost. Obviously, Steve and I had a heads up here. But yeah, what I find so interesting is, for those who don't know, bottom line, Frank Einstein is a reanimated corpse. These two scientists, Dr. Flem and Dr. Boyfard, they got together and they wanted to figure out the secrets. Yes, much like Dr. Frankenstein, they were working together. Frankenstein, get it, guys? And and they brought it back to life, but they had to teach him like a kid. So like he didn't understand the world anymore. They had to really educate him. But the one thing, he had kind of these flashes.
He's got these glimmers of his previous life or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
almost like the Captain Marvel movie, you know, that kind of amnesia trope.
Mm-hmm. But what did you guys, Michael or Steven, from where he got his costume, what did you guys think about that? Why does he wear the costume?
It's based on his favorite comic book hero from his childhood. Mr. Excitement.
That's right.
Exclamation bolt.
Yeah, and it looks like, you know, when a kid would wear Superman pajamas.
Right.
That's kind of the style of it.
Yeah, so they said essentially when he put on that costume, it gave him confidence and he was able to like access all these abilities that they didn't know he had. Like he's super agile. He just is a good fighter just naturally. And it just comes out. He doesn't want to use it. That's not his demeanor at all. He's not a grim and gritty character. And yet, yeah, he gets called into action and those things come out. So as the story is progressing here in the first issue, what's really interesting is there's like underground caverns. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff like that. Dr. Flem has this like compound that he builds. And so they've gathered all these characters, kind of this weird crew of people. There's this gal named Bonnie, who is a woman that they rescued from, you know, these zombie creation things, you know, like in the early issues. And so they saved her, and then now she is kind of involved with Dr. Flem romantically, but she's also like going to college. She's going to be super smart, you know. She's very interested in science, but she just looks like a classic 50s blonde bombshell type of look. But yeah, so what would you guys say, like when you think about the early issue here, Michael? You said it was tripping you out. What was tripping you out the most? What were these plot points or lack thereof that was crazy to you?
I mean, it jumps from them, like him and his girlfriend. I forget her name off the top of my head.
No.
Like they're in a park, they're having a nice little interaction. I'm trying to figure out in my head, like, what does she see in this guy? Like, how is the chemistry there? What is the connection? Then they're like in this basement where they show that he's getting reanimated. Then we jump to outside again. And then there's an alien landing, and you're like, okay, what is this alien space shuttle? And they like cut into it with that, I'm just like, there was a lot of information thrown at you in the first issue, and you're just like, okay, I assume that this either fills in the gap as time goes on, or it's just like I said, a fever dream, that all this kind of stuff is just...
Well, it is something where, yeah, it's definitely showing you that Snap City, which is where they operate out of, anything can happen there. Like it's just a world, this nexus of crazy things that just, again, a lot of them are sci-fi tropes or comic book tropes that would just occur. But Steven, so have you had a chance to read these early adventures? Because you said volume 2 of the trade paperback was hard to find.
I have volume 1 and volume 3.
Yeah.
I don't have volume 2. So what did Michael read compared to what I read?
This is the Dark Horse #1.
So what does that look like on the inside?
So on the inside, you don't have to open here, we got some stuff where Frank is kind of.
Do I have that issue?
Yes, like this is stuff where like Frank is on a date with Joe, like Michael was talking about, and then
Steven.
There's some.
Okay.
Like, yeah. Okay. So you got it. You got it.
I'm looking for color. Is he wearing like a black? See, I don't know. Do I have that?
Yeah, I think you have the early adventures prior to this, because like this is the end. Does this character look familiar, Steven?
Not really, no.
That is
weird.
Mott the Hoople.
So what do I have?
Is that pre-Dark Horse?
You have everything up to the Tundra issues, going to Madman Adventures. But
this is the first color one I have. This thing.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So that's all Madman Adventures in volume 1. That's what I thought. Yeah. So we'll fill you in here. But basically, the craziest part of all this to me is Mike Allred has this fascination with beatniks, and there are these street beatniks that instead of like gangbangers of the 90s, they are street beatniks. They're like giving you a hard time, man. What are you doing, Jack? You know, and they're just like hassling Frank and Joe on their date. And like eventually they start chasing them, and Frank and Joe gather up. There's this alien. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They get some sort of ooze on them, and they become like monsters after that.
Right. So like Frank throws this jar of ooze that he was collecting as a sample that sloughed off the alien. It hits them, and then they become all pink and all pustule and gross. So now they're mutant street beatniks.
Okay.
Arch nemesis.
As happens, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so from there, basically, like I said, there's this alien. They're very concerned about it. And then like the last panel is they end up in a spaceship of an alien who's like, my name is Mott, you know, and so
the Hoople.
I can't. The Hoople. But yeah, for those who don't know, that's an old like band from the 70s, Mott the Hoople. Yeah, for those who are not deep into old classic rock stuff.
I can see why Michael wouldn't have responded to this based on what I'm looking at here now. This seems like the antithesis of everything that Michael likes in comics.
But that being said, I loved iZombie when I read it. And it's got a little bit of, you know, that kind of craziness, but it's a little bit more grounded than this in a way. It's nothing like the TV show at all. Like it's totally different from that. But this was like I need to like read like a children's book. I was so confused. It's like, where am I going?
See, I like quite the opposite. I thought it really hit me. It kind of combined my love for comics and like weird indie cinema and weird horror movies. So for me, it struck a different chord. I know Michael's not a horror guy.
It is very polarizing in that way, right? It's either like 100% this speaks to me, I get it, or it's like, this is really weird, like Michael's reaction. So like it's the perfect dichotomy between you two. Michael, I will tell you this though, with the mutant street beatniks, eventually they do mutate and become superheroes. So that's like their pupil state is that look, and then they transform and they become the Atomics. And Madman teams up with them. So like it does pay off. That's what I love about this universe is Mike Allred, like he plants all these seeds, and then over time it eventually builds up. Now, Michael, this is another one that it may not be a good starter for you, but this was the first issue of Madman I ever picked up after many years of reading about it in Wizard. But this is an Alex Ross cover, right? And this is Madman and the Madman comics, but it's kind of this is another one, like if you get into it, you're like, I don't know what's going on in this universe. I didn't pick up another single issue after this. I had to go back to the beginning, right? But also in here is a giant poster that I've talked about before of this cover. And I still, to this day, I got this in 2009. I was checking the the stamp here, and it's one of those things I was just negotiating with my wife this week, where I was like, "There's a wall above our staircase that goes to our basement. Can I put it up there?" She's like, "No,
no."
So it won't fit on these walls back here. It's just a gigantic movie poster. So someday.
I have to admit though, I do have to read the Madman Superman Hubbubaloo or whatever you sent me.
Yeah,
I haven't read it yet. What I will do,
that looks cool.
As a follow-up to this, I will give my feedback on that 3-issue story, which I'm hoping is a little bit more grounded than this, because there's Superman in it. You got to be like, well, you can't go totally manic on this thing.
you should read Mike Allred's Silver Surfer run, which I was reading recently.
Okay.
I think you'd like that.
I do like Silver Surfer, so
it's really cool.
If you didn't like the original series, I have to say, don't pick up Madman Atomic Comics. As you can tell from the cover here, it is very experimental. It is something where this was like everything Mike Allred ever wanted to explore in comics. And like each issue is like a totally different style and these weird panel layouts and whatever. So that would not be a good entry point. But the Atomics, any of those comics, I promise you, if you read them, you will love them. This is another one just to mention in the interview in this issue of Wizard. He mentions how he wants to do a team up. The only team up he would consider is with The Jam, which was by a character created by a guy named Bernie Marault. Never heard of The Jam, but this is The Jam and his crossover with Nexus.
Oh, Nexus, right.
Yeah, so this is a pretty fun little connection there, that for those who like indie comics, like that was like, oh, these big crossovers happening. So, but this is my question then. So I assume you've read volume 3 then, Stephen?
Yes, I'm actually still reading it.
Okay, so, but is it speaking to you as much as volume 1? Do you notice the change?
It's speaking to me as much as volume 1. It starts to look more polished as he goes on. It's almost shocking that it started as a black and white book, because it uses color so vividly that, it works so well. It works well as a black and white book, but it works really, really well as a color book. So, I mean, I kind of like the places it goes to and the weird sci-fi stuff that goes on. I'm really into it.
And I will say, like, the coloring in this book is really, really nice. Like it's not this dark, gritty, story. It's really beautiful. The art is really beautiful. Like,
it's not Frank Miller.
It's not Frank Miller. No, it is not Frank Miller. It's unique. I mean, the style is cool. I've always liked this style. It's really interesting. It is just a little bit, out there. And it's not that I don't like horror comics, because I've read one of my favorite books of the last couple of years is a book called Clean Room by Gail Simone, which is like, whoa, real horror. Like, it's horror. But this is very interesting. It's just like it wasn't what I expecting it to be, like I can see, the elements of kind of being a Frankenstein type of a character, because, Frankenstein is, the monster himself is just sort of like trying to figure out who he is, especially like if you've seen certain iterations of the movies and so on and so forth. I'm interested to see what the Superman story tie-in is and see if I'll like it better. And I didn't dislike it. This is not the worst piece of garbage I've read on this podcast, not by a long shot, but it's just was not what I was expecting, period.
Yeah, and I will say, in your comparison there, Stephen, mentioning Frank Miller, mentioning Grim and Gritty, which was their ultra violence, all those things, I think that's why Madman stood out and why it really was something that people latched onto, because they're like, oh, finally, kind of a semi-wholesome, fun, but a little bit edgy here and there, but just like a book that just gave you good vibes. And it definitely is a throwback to, Jack Kirby, as we mentioned in the tribute. Mike Allred, big Kirby, Lee, Fantastic Four fan, all those things. So I think a lot of comic book publishers in that era were saying, oh, we're taking you back to classic storytelling, and they just didn't accomplish it. But Mike Allred did while being original.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is why his legacy has only grown, because you're just like, it always feels good to open a Madman comic. You might be confused, but you like the art, you like the character interactions, everybody gets along, you know, and there's a little bit of drama, but just enough, you know, but not too you know, it's not full on soap opera every time, you know. So
nobody had any spikes on their shoulders for no apparent reason.
It feels very Generation X, and
yes.
not the Marvel Generation X, the actual Generation X, kind of those people that grew up in the 70s and 60s and were watching all those 50s sci-fi B movies, and we're getting into philosophy and all that kind of stuff. It clearly captured that culture, because I think, you know, some of the biggest cultural references for Mike Allred were, you know, his appearances in Kevin Smith movies and his artwork for Kevin Smith movies. So he was part of that slacker generation.
Right.
And speaking of which, so I rewatched Chasing Amy last night as I was getting ready for this episode, and I remembered that Mike Allred was in it, that there was Mike Allred art. I didn't remember how much Mike Allred and Madman is in this. I mean, like obviously at the comic book convention scenes, Mike Allred's in it, you know, he doesn't see Chow Yun-Fat playing Madman, which is great. But like the poster I showed you, like that's up in the background in one of the scenes. There's also a lot of stuff like where just like, you know, Banky's like reading a Madman trade at their studio. Like there's also like, you know, you say there's so much art that, you know, is part of, you know, Blunt Man and Chronic is all Mike Allred. So like that is a lot of people's introduction, I have to believe, to Mike Allred's work, and maybe didn't even know it. And Steven, it even inspired you back in the day to buy a piece of clothing, right?
Yes. Well, because Jason Lee wears the black shirt with the yellow exclamation point. So I bought it at Midtown Comics because I wanted to look like, you know, Banky, I guess. And, you know, in my college dorm room, I had a poster from Chasing Amy, and it was when they're playing video games on the couch, and it was the three of them, and he's wearing the Madman shirt. So
see, growing up, I had seen that shirt all over the place. Thought it was Black Adam.
Didn't know it basically is. I mean,
I was like, oh, people rocking a Black Adam here. That's kind of cool. Not knowing that it was Madman. You know.
And that shirt goes for a ton of money now because they stopped making it. And I don't even know what I did with mine. It must have gone to the Goodwill pile.
Like I had the classic, the white and the red, and the black and the yellow. They have to be somewhere in a box, and I just haven't found them because I didn't wear them out. I remember if they had been destroyed, I would have been sad. So they're somewhere, but I just haven't seen them for years.
So what do you got with those action figures behind us? What do you got? Those
most likely, yeah.
No, what?
So this is, I don't know if you guys remember this series. This was Legendary Heroes, which was basically taking independent comics characters. If you look on the back, there was Judge Dredd, there was Ripclaw from Cyberforce, Savage Dragon, Witchblade, you know, like, and then they had to build a figure that was Pit. Okay.
Oh, fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember picking this up. This is Pitt's little buddy, Timmy, I believe is his name, you know, but like, so yeah, I remember picking this up at Walmart back in the day. I was just like, they made a Madman figure and they're selling it at Walmart. There was actually a way cooler series of Madman figures that were like original, like the first, they were pretty big actually too. And they had lots of different like accessory packs you could buy and all that. This one was a special order on Kickstarter. This guy who does it in the Secret Wars style.
I was going to say, it looks like Secret Wars meets Superpowers.
Yeah, they're called Fresh Monkey Fiction is the name of the it's really random, but they recently just did one and I was gonna buy it, but I was in the middle of my move, so I'll see if it's still available. It was a follow-up, which was Madman from the Oddity Odyssey, where he's got the full head and he's got the stitched mouth, and it's like
cool,
the classic costume. So I got to get that one eventually here.
Is that this on the back cover?
No, that's a Frank Miller drawing of Madman there. No, the original, like I say,
yeah, it says it. Look at that.
Yeah, so
it's like this guy.
There we go, right there. See how it's a little bit different, Michael? His hair's not out. He's got some claw marks on the side for some reason that always confused me.
This guy.
Yeah. So the early look of Madman, where he was more skeletal, I guess you would say.
You know what I've always wanted an action figure of? And this is the most random.
Yourself?
No, please. This is the most random Madman reference. I think in the next issue of Wizard, or in 2 issues, there's a design your own Madman contest. that Mike Allred judges. People send in their own submissions. And someone drew a Wonder Bread Madman with like the Wonder Bread circle dots all over it. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And he even liked it. So someone wants to make a Wonder Bread Madman figure, I'll pick it up.
That'd be awesome. And then you can sell it alongside the mythical Wonder Bread He-Man. I know.
I was just thinking that. Wondar.
Yes. Wondar. All right. Well, guys, I mean, I'm so glad you finally dived into the world of Madman. There, like I said, there'll be more to come when Michael follows up with the Madman Superman Hullabaloo. I guarantee you will love it. Much more cohesive a story, much more, linear. You'll be able to follow it, I think. So
okay.
Get on it, Kennedy.
All right. I'll read it in the next week or so, and I'll give my full review.
That's the Kennedy promise. Look for it on a mini episode.
Overpromise, underdeliver.
But guys, thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube for another Robin's Reading Rainbow. Yes, we will be back for sure. We got some more videos in the works we'll be bringing your way. But if you want to stay connected with the show, be sure to go on over to Twitter. We are at Wizards Comics, on Instagram at Wizards_comics. Be sure also, if you want more, even more, we are hopping, we are jumping, we are enjoying it. Super Ginchy for all you Madman fans over on Patreon, patreon.com/Wizards Comics. You want to spend $3, you'll get early episodes unedited. You want to spend $5, you get the early episodes. But what else do you get? You get an exclusive podcast, 90s Super Cinema, hosted by Michael and Steven. And I'm starting to pop in here and there too. So guys,
tell us what we did wrong, what we forgot.
I'm so obsessive that way. But you guys, what are you covering next in the month of May? What just won our poll?
It was Model by Day.
One. So we have upcoming. We have Batman Returns is coming soon, and then we have. What is the one after that? I forgot. I forgot.
Seriously, you pushed everyone to vote for it.
I forgot already.
Meteor Man.
Oh, right, Meteor Man. I can't keep track. Give me a break.
And also along with that, you get an exclusive video like this from us each month, covered all sorts of crazy topics. We have a fun one coming up as well. We're going to make Michael and Steven suffer as they read through an issue of Prime. They have been given Prime. Speaking of He-Man, Thunder Punch He-Man, they will read it. We'll see what they say when they finally
We're going to say bad things.
Also, for $7 a month, in addition to all of that, you get to have a chat with us. We won't just be talking at you. We'll be talking with you with our monthly geek group chat. It's all affordable. Basically costs less than most comics these days to subscribe to the Patreon and get a little bit extra. So we hope that you will join us. And until next time, keep your books bagged and boarded.